tweet about a Guardian article. I look forward to a time where award shows can be reflective of the society we live in, is a quote from the Guardian article. That's Sam Smith saying that at the Brits in 2021. Wish granted, ? This year, our sexist society is reflected so brilliantly that no women are nominated for Best Artist. Bravo, genderists. Okay, if I may have my screen back for a moment, Zach. Actually, no, I'll hold on to my screen. So the article that the Guardian has written then has this quote. The awards ceremony, this is, I don't remember what it's called. It's not in this sentence, it's not in this paragraph. The awards ceremony run by the British Phonographic Industry, BPI, did away with the Best British Male and Best Female awards in 2022, following criticism that the non-binary pop star Sam Smith would not be eligible for either prize despite their massive commercial success. And apparently for 2 years running now, one of the downstream effects of that has been that there have been no women among the finalists in a number of categories. And so there's concern, obviously, that out of deference to the new fiction, which it is, of non-binary, which, like, you know, go for it, abandon your gender norms, but you're still male or female. So this new fiction of non-binary as a meaningful descriptor of identity is replacing male and female, which are biological realities, people. Women will once again get less recognition for their work, right? As NBs, as the non-binary people sometimes like to be called, begin to take spots that would have been spots that women are getting. So I see this as a concern. I do see the people who think that gender is more important than sex and are making up categories and obliterating reality as very, very much so, basically coming in and taking some of the many hard-won rights of women. That is absolutely true. But this prompted me to think more, actually, about categories of sex in the first place across in various domains. So in sport, we have male and female category. And yes, obviously, actually, and there are still a lot of people fighting this fight, and, you know, I'm in that fight sometimes, and somehow this isn't totally obvious to everyone, but if really, unless you were born yesterday, this should be obvious, right? There's a reason there are different categories for men and women in sport. No amount of hormone disruption, blocking, enhancement of cross-sex hormone, surgery can erase elite male advantage if you went through puberty as a male, right? So that's one thing, and at least in competitions of physical prowess and strength, right? So, and you know, that doesn't mean that you can't have co-ed sports. And I've written about, and we've talked about, for instance, how much we both loved and we sometimes played competitively co-ed ultimate frisbee, and of course there's mixed doubles in tennis. You know, there are co-ed sports where they can make sense, but it has to be an explicit expectation, right? So, okay, so sport, different categories for male and female in sport. Yes.
Well, I want to pause you because the question is, I am obviously an advocate for the same thing, that such a category should exist. But the question is really, why do we do that?
Okay, but I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
So different categories in sport, yes, male and female. Different categories in acting. Actor and actress. I think so, for different reasons, right? Which is that male and female are fundamental realities of humanity, and indeed of all vertebrates, with a couple of weird little exceptions where it's still male and female are realities, and just a few species have ditched the males and are all female now, but they're still female, right? But for humans, male and female are realities and has been for the hundreds of millions of years of our lineage that we've been reproducing sexually, and maybe again that's closer to 2 billion. And some acting roles may not be sexed, and those are some of the most interesting roles, honestly, right? Like, oh, that story could be embodied by a man or embodied by a woman, but who is embodying some story, some character arc, some narrative arc, does then somewhat change, you know, how that story plays out and how that character develops and what the risks are and the realities and the history and, you know, all of these things, right? So there are different ways of manifesting in the world, even though you can have very sort of male-like female approaches to the world and very female-like approaches to the world that are in the opposite sex bodies of which they are. But in general, I would say that categories by sex for acting make sense. But how about sculptors? No, right? Like even though you may have on average a different approach to sculpting based on your maleness or your femaleness. How about for screenwriters? Well, no, and we don't, right? We don't have different categories for male and female screenwriters or for sculptors. How about Nobel Prizes? No, right? So why music? Is music more like acting or is it more like screenwriting, right? And I think I can see an argument kind of for both. If it's an historic artifact, then it's kind of affirmative action for women in music, right? If it's an historical artifact in which it's a recognition that female musicians didn't really have an ability to get recognized, to get seen, and so we're going to create an award category to help women get seen. Well, that's different from it was necessary that men and women had different categories for music awards because male and female music is different. And so that brings me to exactly what you were going to jump the gun here on, which is that there are at least two distinct reasons to have categories by sex. And I think there's actually a third, but the two main ones that are detailed in the sort of list of like, yes for sports, yes for acting, no for sculpting, no for Nobel Prizes, no for screenwriting. Music is a questionable one. One of the reasons to have different categories by sex is because men and women are different and their skills and talents manifest differently in the world. And so they're judged on different scales or variables. And yes, the different ways that males and females, men and women manifest in the world is a distribution rather than a binary, right? Like male and female are binary, and the ways that maleness and femaleness manifest in the world are, more or less, finite normal distributions in terms of how it is that we show up in the world. But it's about physical and biological and frankly sort of population level statistical reality. And then the second reason to have categories is, again, to like fix an historical wrong, to recognize that women have been historically underrepresented or discriminated against, and the categories serve to right historical inequality. And if that's the case for a particular thing, as women reach parity, or it's clear that in some particular field it's not going to happen for reasons having nothing to do with bias, those categories should be disappeared. And they certainly shouldn't be clung to because it's always the way we've done it, if they were about fixing an historic wrong as opposed to about recognition of an underlying reality that isn't going to change, no matter how many people walk around saying that they're pansexual envies or whatever it is that they're claiming.